Happy first program of 2017, and I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Watson, and this is the Dad Whisperer. Well, honestly, I can tell you there's nowhere I'd rather be on this first Monday of the year than with you. And I love that this is a forum where we can come together to talk about one of my very favorite topics in the whole world, which is dads and inspiring them and equipping them to be a better dialed-in dad to their daughters. That is my passion, and I think you know that by now. So I welcome you today to the Dad Whisperer, and am excited and looking forward to our topic for today, which I always keep you a little bit in suspense here at the beginning. And here as we start this new year, I figure I might as well introduce myself to some of you that might not know me, but I've been a counselor for 20 years, and that is something that I love and feel called to. And a couple years ago, I wrote a book that's called Dad, Here's What I Really Need From You, a guide for connecting with your daughter's heart. And in the back of the book, I've got dad-daughter date questionnaires, and all the chapters are short because men told me just get to the point already. So I'm telling you, I've been traveling now to Mars, I say for 7 years. I lead groups of dad in my home, and that's where I have my office, and it's called the Abba Project. Abba meaning daddy in Aramaic, and men love a project. And so I'm taking a lot of what I've learned over the last 7 years and weaving it together for this program. And dads have told me that it really helps them to understand from a woman how to relate to their daughters in a better, more empowered way. So I love giving you guys tools for your fathering toolbox. And here's the deal. It's win-win because I've discovered that men would rather do nothing than do it wrong. So if you put into action something I tell you to do, you just say to your daughter, Michelle told me to do this. I have no idea why she thought this would work. Roll me under the bus, because then you are the hero that you want to be and your daughter needs you to be, and then try another thing. So I want to give you lots of action steps, a lot of action tools that you can use and put into use. So I'm excited. Well, on your mark, get set, go. Let's go. So every week, like you know, we start on your mark with a topic. So today, the topic at the start of 2017 is one that I would say so far is going to be one of the heavy ones. Maybe you say they've all been that way, but I mean, the title is Drop the Anger. Drop the anger. Now, you may say, I do not want a woman telling me what kind of emotional responses I should have to my daughter. Okay. I honor that. But I'm just saying, okay, don't switch the dial yet or turn me off. Let's just hang in there and see if you feel that I'm addressing this topic from a vantage point that is respectful, insightful, informative, because that's truly what my desire is to give you practical, heartfelt information from my 35 years of working with women and 56 years of being one. So I would say that in the years that I have been talking, especially with men, more in depth, that oftentimes they find that anger is a part of the deal, right? Anger just seems to be one of those things that runs the gamut across different personality types and different birth order positions that men struggle with anger. In fact, I was just reading a study where 10,000 men across the country were asked if they had a problem with anger. And guess what? What percentage do you think said they did? 95. Isn't that insane? I think, or I should say, isn't that accurate? But I mean, that's a pretty significant number. And I think oftentimes I've seen that men have a tendency to short circuit the process with their kids, and they get short, they get angry, they get frustrated really quick because they just want to get to the fix, right? And they want to push for that kind of a response rather than sometimes pacing with their kids at their different ages. And yet the truth is, you know, if dad say, you know, that's just my, you know, I'm Italian and that's what we do, or I'm Irish, that we get angry in my family, or, you know, I just have a short fuse and it's the way I'm wired. And I go, okay. But let's work on that, because you guys, I want to tell you a story. Again, I told you I've been traveling to Mars for 7 years, and I have had this happen more than once. And it is so awesome where men who are dads of daughters find out that I'm, quote, an expert, or that this is really my passion area where I've honed in. And here is a direct quote. I was at a church, and, you know, where you turn around and you greet someone next to you. And this dad, his face lit up as he talked about his 2.5-year-old. And he said, oh, you know, I love being a dad to a little girl. And then he said, oh, you wrote a book to dads of daughters? And this is exactly what he asked me. He said, in 20 seconds, what advice can you give me as a dad to a daughter? Go. I've had another guy ask me that too. Give me 3 things on your mark, set, go. And when this dad said, in 20 seconds, what advice could you give me as a dad to a daughter? I did not hesitate for even a moment. And here's what I said. Make sure to always drop your anger. And he was still with me, and I still had a few more seconds. So I said, okay, anger is the number one way to hurt your daughter's heart. So even when she pushes your buttons as she gets older, make a commitment right here, right now, not to respond in anger as a way to assert your power, because it's the most effective way to destroy her and to close up her spirit. I said, there you go. And he's like, wow, didn't know that's what you were going to say. So I'm telling you, dads, today, that is the topic. On your mark, as you're lined up, men standing alongside men, getting you to run the race. And I think of me as your coach. I'm standing out in front and I'm going, okay, dads, the topic today is drop the anger. But I'm going to now fill it in. So get set, right? Every week I fill it in with stories, with information so that it goes from head to heart. Because God said, right? The whole thing, Malachi 4:6, Luke 1:17, it's about turning your heart and not just your head toward your kids. And especially because I'm an expert more in the dad-daughter relationship, I'm saying I see the fallout, the impact of daughters who close up their hearts because they've been wounded one too many times by dad. And that hardening of their heart leads them to make really, really poor decisions based out of that. And I'm saying, so if God says the hearts of fathers need to turn so that our land won't be hit with a curse, I'd say it's a pretty big deal, right? So what I want to say today is that when I talked with this dad, right, in church, who said, 20 seconds, tell me what I need to know, is I walked away and I had the thought, maybe that was too negative. But then I thought, you know what? Would it have been better to tell him what to do instead of what not to do? Or did I speak Martian? Because I've discovered men, like I said, would rather do nothing than do it wrong, but they don't want to do it wrong. That's why you guys step back and I'm saying, okay, I think men want to know what not to do wrong as much as they want to know what to do right. Well, I'm your girl. So I can tell you honestly, in my 35 plus years of mentoring, counseling, youth group leading, camp counseling, women and girls, teenagers and 20-somethings, I can tell you honestly that I have heard more stories of heart hurts from dad's anger than anything else, without a doubt. And so today I know that I have to speak boldly and honestly with you in an attempt to plant this seed in your heart and your mind. Whether you have a 2-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 22-year-old, a 42-year-old, your daughter needs the anger to be dropped for her to really be able to develop a stronger, close relationship with you. So here's my question for you. Okay, I know that being frustrated and angry is something we all do. And especially for men, it's when you're disrespected or when mom is disrespected. Am I right? That's what I have a lot of men tell me is that's the line, that when that's crossed, I lose it. But I'm saying, okay, let me ask you this. How well does it usually go when you yell at your daughter or your son, telling them not to respect mom? Okay, it bombs, right? I mean, if you think about it, by yelling at her, are you disrespecting her when that's the exact lesson you're trying to teach her? I mean, again, tone is a huge part of this. Experts say that communication is 7% verbal and 93% nonverbal. And I've heard it broken down even more. 7% words, 55% body language, and 38% tone of voice. So a huge section of how you communicate is your tone. And a lot of dads go, that was not me angry. You want to hear anger? You want to see me angry? Oh, that was nothing. And I'm saying, okay. But your daughter didn't hear it that way. To her, you were angry. But to you, that was nothing. And if really you want to be a dad that turns your heart toward your daughter, turns your heart toward your son, you need to check in with them about how you're being perceived, how you're being heard. And okay, I'm going to change it up today. I like to give you the go step at the end, but I'm going to throw it in here just in case you don't have time to listen to the end. Dads, develop something that I call just 0 to 10, right? I'm a 0 to 10 queen. That's what I tell my clients. So you say to them on a scale of 0 to 10, how did you just hear me? Say that she says 8.9. And you said, really? Wow. To me, that was a 2. Look at how it's just flipped. But the 0 to 10 is a really practical, great way for you to check out how you are being heard. Okay, well, let me keep going. I want you to honestly know that anger is something I've struggled with too. I really have. And I don't want you to think I'm just sitting up here like telling you what to do. Okay, so that's my little teaser. I'm gonna do a mid-program break here, but hang on if you want to hear about my anger story. So you're joining today me on the Dad Whisperer, and I'm just Dr. Michelle Watson. I say just because the doctor thing really doesn't matter to me. But sometimes I've had people say, the letters after your name give you some credibility. So I throw that in there so you'll know I did some school. And I'm author of a book called Dad, Here's What I Really Need From You, a guide for connecting with your daughter's heart. And you can email me at drmichelle@thedadwhisperer.com. You can go to my website, drmichellewatson.com, and get my every other Dad Daughter Friday blogs or find out how to get my book. And I give you free resources. But let's just keep the conversation going. Okay, now back to my anger. I am a firstborn. I am a type A. Some of my friends say type A++. And I move and I shake and I'm going fast. And there's an intensity that sometimes gets in the way of loving, the people around me because I'm on task and that slowed me down or that got in the way. But really, I would say, one of the worst of my life in terms of an anger response is I was 23 years old and I was on a summer singing drama team in Europe with a group called Malachi that was with Overseas Christian Servicemen Centers. That was now Cadence International. And this quartet, we would go around to youth groups in the military, to the chapels, and we would host different events and sing and lead fun games. And there was this one youth group, oh my word, they were so disrespectful. It's only like 20 kids, and they're giggling and laughing and talking. You aren't going to believe this. I'm almost embarrassed to tell you this, but in the middle of the song that we were singing, I stopped and I started yelling at them about how rude they were and how disrespectful they were. You guys, I yelled. Okay, have you ever been to a concert where the people on the platform started yelling at the audience? Oh my word, not one of my finest moments. I could not stop it. It just came out. I was horrified, but there it was. You can't really take it back. But then what ended up happening is I started crying and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I couldn't keep that in. And I'm like, will you please forgive me? And thankfully, God turned the whole meeting around and these kids ended up responding to us and to God and the Lord through us. But oh my word, I'm just letting you know, anger's something I deal with too. And the more I hear from girls, I'm going, Dad's anger really does damage. And again, I'm not saying I'm the poster child for how to deal with anger. But what I want you to hear is that when I made amends that day and I asked them to forgive me, it took what could have been a devastation to their hearts, where forever they would say, we don't ever want to, collaborate with that organization again. Thank you, Michelle, for ruining our reputation of a missions organization in one fell swoop. But by softening and being broken and coming and asking for forgiveness, there was amends, there was reconciliation, there were conversations that happened. Take from my story, hopefully something practical that will make a difference in your lives and say, okay, am I doing that? Am I going back to my kids and making it right? Because today, on your mark is drop the anger. Like I said, I've heard more devastating stories from dad's anger to a daughter's heart than I've ever heard from anything else. In fact, I was reading in this book called The 5 Love Languages of Children by Chapman and Campbell, and they say, listen to this quote, the primary lifetime threat to your child is his or her anger. If your child does not handle his own anger well, or hers, it will damage or destroy him. The handling of anger is related to every present and future problem that your child may have, from poor grades to damaged relationships. They even said to possible suicide. And they said it's imperative that you do all you can to safeguard your child now and in the future. And I think, okay, because more is caught than taught. I wonder how often the anger in a child is because him or her, he or she is modeling what happens in the home. And if you want your daughter to be less hard in her heart, less disrespectful, more caring, more soft in her heart, it's got to start with you. You have to model self-restraint even when everything in you believes you're justified in your intense response to her intense response or his intense response. And I mean, let's just add in the fact that God himself gives specific directives about anger. One of them is general, One of them is to fathers. I'm sure you know these verses. James 1:19 in the Message says, lead with your ears. You got 2 of them. Follow with your tongue, right? 2 to 1, ears to tongue, ears to mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk. Lead with your ears, follow up with your tongue, and let what? Anger straggle along in the rear. Isn't that powerful? Lead with your ears, follow with your tongue, let anger straggle along in the rear. And I'm sure you've all read Colossians 3:21 before. And here's how it is in the Message Bible. Fathers, don't come down too hard on your children or you'll crush their spirit. Crush their spirit. That's when, especially when a daughter, think of it like take your palm right now and just hold it up. Like your palm is up to the sky. And now take your fingers as they're completely out and just make a fist. When your daughter's spirit goes from open to closed, it's like she's a fist and she's going to punch back. And I'm telling you, we as women do not do well when our hearts are hard. We don't like being that way, but oftentimes it's self-protective. And it's got to start with you, Dad. And that word, even in the NIV, the word provoke, fathers, don't provoke your children to anger, right? The Message says don't come down too hard. But provoke means to stir up, to exasperate them. It says, or they'll become discouraged. And I think we see a lot of kids who have anger issues that are deeply wounded by their dads. Granted, I'm not saying moms are off the hook, but the stories that I've heard for over 3.5 decades, I mean, in ministry and in counseling and mentoring, is so often, you guys, it's dads. It's dad's anger. So I'm just keeping it real today. So I'm saying God is even in Scripture telling dads, don't provoke your children to anger or they'll become discouraged, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And nurture is a training word. Bring them up as a nourishing, providing in the heart care with tender, loving care word. So it says to me that God knows that this kind of TLC from a dad is masculine, but he's also commanding men to do it, which tells me that it's not a natural default and something that men have to work on. So here's 5 main ways that I have found that a dad's anger impacts a daughter. Your anger destroys her spirit. Your anger shuts her down. Your anger crushes the core of who she is. Your anger causes her to give up. And number 5, your anger will make her believe that she's unlovable, that she's unworthy, and not worth loving. And I have never met a dad that wants to crush his daughter or son, that wants to destroy the spirit of his daughter or son, that wants to shut his child down and crush the core of who him or her is, or to make them want to give up. Right? That's not what you want. If you really are serious about this, you have got to find a way to drop the anger. Because my belief is that every one of you wants to do the opposite of those things. You want your child to thrive. Now, you may be thinking, okay, Michelle is Debbie Downer today. All she's doing is making us feel bad about our shortcomings and failures. That's why I wanted you to hear about mine too, so you know we're in this together. But all I can say is that I'm really not seeking to shame you. I promise you. But I'm wanting to be a truth speaker because we have to talk about this. And I'm going, where are you going to do it except here? Come on, dads. We got to do it here. The dad whisper. Like my friend Wayne said, Michelle, if you shouted at us, we wouldn't listen to you. But I don't know how you do it, but you do whisper to us. And that's really my goal, is to inform you, educate you, inspire you, equip you, and really see you then take off with the tools, 1 a week, to make you be the best dad you can be. I mean, this week I talked with a dad who actually told me in 2011 that he made a choice to, quote, put the anger away. I was so blown away that he made a conscious decision, and he can go back to the day in the year that he said, I decided to put the anger away. You know why? Because there have been very devastating impacts from his anger. So he made a conscious decision to stop the anger. Now, I want to, again, for the get set, I'm breaking this down. I'm helping you understand different things to make this make sense. But I want to share with you some responses that I've gotten from daughters between the ages of 13 and 30 when I ask them this question, from your point of view, what makes your dad angry? Is any of that anger from your point of view about you? And what do you feel like inside when your dad gets angry or frustrated with you? I want you to hear these heart statements. One said, well, it really just depends on the day when it comes to what makes my dad angry. If something happens to the car, he can get angry about that. But he gets really upset when he thinks that us kids don't appreciate all that he or my mom do for us. And he gets angry when we lie or are disrespectful. I hear that a lot from both dads and daughters, is that disrespect thing. But then I ask you, Dad, are you disrespecting her while training her not to be disrespectful? Right? That's the question. This daughter went on to say, sometimes these things are about me, and it's hard to see him hurt or upset. And it's hard to see him hurt when he's hurting someone I love deeply. But we're only human. We all make mistakes. Do you hear that she's throwing her dad a bone, if you will? She's saying, I know my dad doesn't mean this, but this is how he gets, and it's hard on me. Another daughter said, in response to what makes your dad angry, she said, when people aren't honest, he's very honest, and he values that in others. And then she said, my dad really doesn't like it when I am annoying. Listen to this one. This one's going to break your heart. This girl said, I make my father angry. Just the act of me breathing makes him angry. I am the source of his anger, and he has mentioned that I am on a few occasions. When my father gets frustrated with me, I really let him have it, the cold shoulder that is. So can you see how it's that reciprocation? If dad is giving that out, oftentimes a child will reciprocate with angry responses back. Another daughter said, when people disrespect my dad, he gets angry, but he hardly ever gets angry with me. I thought that was cool. Another one said, I think that my dad's own mistakes and his own guilt make him angry. I don't know if it's about me, and I don't really care. If my dad gets frustrated with me for a legitimate reason, then I feel I deserve it, and I listen to him and I act accordingly. Now listen to this, dads. She said, if my dad misdirects his anger and his frustration on me, which he frequently does, then I get really angry, really in capital letters, and tell him to go get himself straight. She had a few expletives in there that I took out. But she said, at the same time, it hurts my feelings, but I don't tell him that. Another one said, when my dad gets mad at me, I get mad at him. She said, I think it stems from stubbornness, though. He thinks I'm wrong. And she put, well, I know he's wrong. No in capitals. But look at that. It's back and forth. And I'm saying, Dad, it has to start with you. The change has to start with you to drop the anger. Another daughter, in response to the question, from your point of view, what makes your dad angry? She said, when he is disappointed in me, it hurts so much. She said, he's only gotten angry 3 times in my life, but I don't want to disappoint him. I've heard that so many times I can't even count from daughters, that it's harder when they know they've disappointed their dad than when their dad gets angry. So I'm telling you, dads, if you're thinking, how does my daughter respond to my angry responses? That gets her going. That doesn't actually work real good on Venus, the planet we're from. Is if you are softening and letting your daughter know you're disappointed in their sadness, you will motivate her far greater than with anger. So the question then is, what do you do about this? Well, here's 5 things. I gave you 5 things, not that the impact of anger. So here's the bottom line. Instruct her without anger, discipline her without anger, dialogue with her without anger, disagree with her without anger, and lead her without anger. But I know that's easier said than done, right? Okay, so I'm moving toward the finish line here, guys. I'm going to give you 3 things. And this is DAD is the acrostic of how to work on this area of anger. The first one is decide. Like I shared with you that there was a dad that said he decided to put his anger away because he saw it was destroying his family. So it can be done. I mean, think of it this way. If I was to offer you $1 million to stop being harsh for a week or a month or a year, you'd be motivated, right? Well, your daughter is your $1 million investment. So you admit that you need to stop this and that you need help to change. Be accountable with another dad. Decide is the first one to change. Second, ask your daughter to give you a rating on 0 to 10. How did you experience me right then? Or how am I doing on changing that? Be accountable to her. New Year's resolution. Ask for feedback. Ask your daughter to rate you 0 to 10. How did you just experience me? Even ask forgiveness. Another kind of ask. Ask forgiveness. Make amends. That could be another A. So decide you want to change. Ask for feedback. Ask forgiveness. There's the A. And 3, decompress. Choose to set a new course. And I love to tell dads, remember how you gave your kids a timeout when they were 3 years old? You'd give them 3 minutes. 5 years old, 5 minutes. Give yourself a timeout for as many minutes as you are old. If you're 53, Go take a time out. Because the truth is, when you get angry, your midbrain is on fire. That's where your emotions are stored. And it floods your frontal lobe where you think and reason. And you're going to say things you regret when you're angry. And I've read some people say it takes 20 minutes to cool down. I would say a better way to go is do it as many minutes as you are old. So dads, DAD, if you want to work on this, dropping your anger, decide that you're going to change it. Ask your daughter for a rating. Ask forgiveness, 2 A's, and decompress. Give yourself time to back up before you respond, cool down, go for a walk, and you will notice a dramatic difference in how your heart gets communicated as you're shaping the lives of your sons and your daughters. So on your mark today, drop the anger, get set. I filled it in with stories and information to help you understand that, and go. Between today and next Monday, I want to encourage you to see if you can go one whole week without anger. 1 week, you can do it. And here's the deal. Put notes on put sticky notes, put notes for yourself around the house, at work. Drop the anger. So they remind you, this is what I'm going for this week. And here's the deal. I've never done this, but I'm going to throw one more thing out. If you can go one whole week without getting angry, and your daughter can attest to it, or your son, you might want to email them, have them included in the email. I will send you one of my books, and I will sign it as a gift to you to say, go dad, you did it. And I want your daughter, your son to be also in on this. Even take a picture of the two of you holding up a sign that says, Dad, drop the anger for a whole week. Because I want to inspire you and equip you and cheer you on that you can do this. Write me at drmichelle@thedadwhisperer.com, and I will send you a signed copy for free, because I want you to make a covenant with your mouth not to vent anger at your children. And here on this first day of 2017, first Monday of 2017, where you're setting a New Year's resolution, let your goal this year be to drop the anger. Go dads.